Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I'm doing is I'm starting off in my car because we're going to be talking about timepieces and tachometers, or the watches and motorsports. Now, the first one that I want to talk about is my own. Well, this is my car watch, my Vacheron Constantin Historiques Americain 1921. When I put my hand on the wheel, notice that the 12 is straight up at 12 o'clock. And one of the reasons behind it is so that it was designed as a driver's watch. Originally, the crown pointed the other way, and I realized that most people wore their watches on their non-dominant hands, and so they switched it over to the other side, and so it's one of the watches that has a connection to drivers. Okay, I'm back. I'm inside and I'm warm. It was cold out there. I still have my Vacheron Constantin Historiques Americain 1921. By the way, this watch came out about 10 years ago. At the end of 2008, it was announced. Now, of course, the original version came out back in 1921. And there's lots of different descriptions of what that crown really was about. On the one hand, some said it was one of the first people who bought one of these back in 21 was a minister, and they thought, well, he was praying and could peek at his watch without the congregation seeing. That's another version. Another was the story about the car, and I think that even though it may not have been in 1921, in late 2008, it was. My honest assumption is that they had back in 21, they had this shape that was used on, it was like a pennant, and they had this kind of shape, and so they thought, well, let's see what we can do with that. And that was they came up with the original 1921 was something like that. Who knows? Okay. All right, well, let's move right along. Now, as we saw, the reason that I had there was a quick thing that you saw with F.P. Journe. When I started looking into watches that were car-related, naturally I thought of the Daytona, Rolex Daytona, and I'll talk about that in a second. But also, too, F.P. Journe, that one of the watches they had was a special Indy 500 version. And for I don't know how long now, F.P. Journe has been sponsoring Formula One racers. And he's got F.P. Journe on it. The newer one, they have fpjourne.com on a race car that he sponsors. So anyway, so yeah, there's a long history with watches and race cars. Now, to me, and to some extent, perhaps the real first one that I think that sort of sustained itself is a Rolex Daytona. I'll tell you why. When it came out with the little units per hour on the dial, and was used to do something with tachometers on the car itself. Now, it was named after the Daytona race, Daytona Beach, Florida, and they used to run it on the beach. And so this goes way back, and it's got a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful history. If you're a Rolex Daytona fan, that watch is really something. At one time, they even had a Zenith El Primero in it, so it's got it just got one thing after the other. This particular one is pretty much the entry-level Daytona's 12,400. So this is when back, back on the beach and so forth, they were doing some timing and some other stuff. So I think really the Rolex, to me, the Rolex Daytona is one of the original ones. Now, there's going to be 15 of you at least, perhaps 1,500, who are going to say, wait a minute, but this watch was before that. If so, that's great. I want to know about it. Thank you. Okay, so let's go on. By the way, too, there's a picture of a race car driver, and that's Laurent Fleurier. And his watch, the green one was in the British Racing Green. Okay. Now, another one that is a real classic sports for motorsports is the Tag Heuer. Now, this particular Tag Heuer, the Monaco Caliber 11, one like it, I'm not sure if it was the Caliber 11 or not, was worn by Steve McQueen in a movie that he made. This was, of course, one that a lot of people wanted. Now, the Caliber 11 today is based on a Sellita SW300. It's automatic, rapid date correction. The movement has a diameter of 30 millimeters, which is pretty good size movement. So the watch itself was a good deal bigger. But this is another real well-known car associated with the Monaco car race, just like the Rolex is associated with Daytona Beach. Now, in addition to being associated with races, some of the car-related watches are related to a particular car. This one right here is a Parmigiani Fleurier aerial light. And this one is, and most of them too, I think just about all of them are chronographs. This one is too, the aerial light. And it's one I happen to like a lot, and for two reasons. One, this one, I like Parmigiani. I like the color, though. The color matched this Bugatti Type 57 1935 Aerolite. That car just, the looks of that thing is just amazing. It looked like something out of an old, early Flash Gordon comic book or something. So it's a pretty cool watch and a pretty cool, a really cool car. So this is another one that you have a watch that's named after a car. Zenith is, I love the name for Zenith. It's called the Chronomaster El Primero Classic Cars. It gets all the cars. It's a chronograph with a central chronograph hand, 30-minute counter at 3 o'clock, the date indication at 8 o'clock. And actually, wait a minute, date indication it looks like it's at 6 o'clock. They had 8 o'clock on what they were talking about. Hours and minutes in the center, small seconds at 9 o'clock. And it has a tachometric scale to it, which is used, again, with tachometers. Now, this one sells for $6,700. It's a much better price. Okay, now here are a couple more. Nomos, they call theirs the Autobahn. There's another very general. It's Autobahn Neomax 41. I don't know why. I just love this Nomos. I really do. It's just, I like it a lot. It's really cool. Now, Oris, we talked about Oris recently, and they have a whole category of watches called motorsport. This particular one is called the Robert Kubica. Now, this is another thing. Robert Kubica is a Polish race car driver, and this is in his honor. And now the price on both of these, is really pretty good. The Oris is $1,450. And the Nomos is $4,800. The Nomos Autobahn uses one of their DUW movements, which is in-house, and the Kubica uses this is one of the Oris watches that doesn't use their in-house, but instead uses a Sellita. All right, moving right along, is Christopher Ward. you only can appreciate this watch if you're nuts, like I am about it. Love Morgans. I've been a Morgan fan forever. I once had a chance to get a Morgan three-wheeler, and I passed on it, and I wish I hadn't, but that happens. The Christopher Ward, this is called the C1 Morgan Classic Chronometer. Now, Christopher Ward has a deal with the Morgan car company. And so, I mean, they have the exclusive deal to use the Morgan logo on their watches. And in fact, there are two different logos that they have. This particular one is a good size one. It's 40.5 millimeter. It's hand wound, my favorite. 5-day reserve. And it uses their in-house movement. It's called the SH21. SH21 is for Synergy's Olorgees. And it's $1,935. To me, is a great price. You get an in-house movement. This is something that may put a dent in my bank account at some point. But I really like this. Like I said, I'm a Morgan fan, and so what do I know, right? So here's another example of a watch that has not just a single watch, but they have a whole series after Morgan. This is their Morgan series. So Christopher Ward has sort of a general one for motor cars, and then has another one just for Morgan, and then has different types of Morgans, including a three-wheeler and some of the other ones that they have. Okay, now this next one, to me, is another favorite, okay? This is the Omega Speedmaster. Now, one of the things that's important to remember is that in 1957, that was when the Russians first put up the Sputnik, but we hadn't done anything yet. I don't think we got anything up until, actually into orbit until 1958. But their tagline was for men who reckon time in seconds. And they had a picture, this is in their ads that they had, and they have a guy timing it, and he's in a car. It's a car watch, a Speedmaster. It wasn't a rocket ship watch. Now, later, when it was used in space, I mean, their marketing people would be crazy not to call it the moon watch, especially when it landed on the moon. But before then, the Speedmaster was set up as a car watch. Now, today, if you go to their site, you can still find a subclass of these watches that are Speedmaster for cars. Let me read you this. It says, before Speedmaster was worn on the moon or at the North and South Poles, it was found on the wrists of men and women driving high-performance automobiles. So it's really, the Speedmaster has a history of this current one from their, I guess, their car or automobile class group of Speedmasters. They have, it looks like tire treads on it. I think that's very cool. And now the new Speedmasters, of course, they all have the George Daniels escapement on it. The what do they call it? The coaxis. That's the coaxial escapement. Okay. Now Chopard has this really very cool watch. This is another one. It has come with the tire treads, and it's called the Miglia. Now, this is an example of a watch named after a race, just like the Monaco was named after the Monaco Grand Prix. And it's pretty standard watch. This particular model used to have is either an ETA or Salida in it, but the newer ones have their in-house movement, the Chopard in-house. They sell for $6,330, and you can find them on the gray market for under $4,000. So it's sort of a cool watch. Here's another watch. I've always liked the looks of that. It's just a cool looking watch. I don't know how much any of these have to do with cars. I running down the road looking at our watches. Okay, now here are a couple of Jaeger-LeCoultre that I really like. Now these are associated with Aston Martin, the car that was made famous by the one of the James Bond movies. And these they don't make them anymore. You can find them. I found one on the left that's called the Master Compressor Extreme with Alarm Aston Martin Limited Edition 200. They only made 100 of these. When I look at it, it's sort of got a lot of horns on there. It's a good size watch. It's 46.3 millimeters. And you can find them on the gray market. I found one for about $11,000 on the gray market. I don't know if this is a watch that I would want to have more than anything or not have anything to do with. It's one of those. I looked at it and thought, wow, look at this is doing. It's got the international time on it. It's got all of this other stuff, and it's a chronograph. Really a very interesting watch. Having one like that, they only made 100, like I said. Okay, now another one. Now this is named after a particular car, another different particular car, and that's the Amvox 2. It is an Aston Martin, but it's a different Aston Martin. It's called the Amvox 2 Chronograph Aston Martin Limited Edition. I don't know how much this was limited to. Another good size watch, 44 millimeters, clean as a whistle though, but it's a chronograph. They're just, to me, very interesting looking watches. The one on the left is pretty wild. Okay, let's go on. Now the final one is the Breitling for Bentley. I don't know why they call it that, but that's what they call it. They have a lot of different models, but pretty much this one. It uses their caliber B06, which is a COSC rated movement. It's 11,030. It's got a 70-hour reserve on it. Chronograph, 30 seconds, 15 minutes, 6-hour totalizers. Calendar, 4 hertz, 49 millimeters. 49 millimeters, that is a big watch. And what you can do, if you go to Breitling, you can play around with you can choose your different bezels and so forth for it. So anyhow, this watch is sort of a lot going on there. I looked at that. I was wondering what the design was, what they had in mind in terms of what I call information design. It's a beautiful looking watch. I love to look at it, but I don't know how practical it would be, to be frank with it. Of course, we're watch collectors. We're not the most practical people on earth, really. $12,515 for the one on the right. That's a brand new one, by the way. And then $11,130 for the one on the left. Okay, now I think I said this at the outset. There are going to be all kinds of people saying, "Wait a minute, how come you didn't have this? And how come you didn't have that?" I just want to sort of bring up some of the general idea of it. But in the comments section, I want you to say, "Look, here is one that I think is important. And here's why it is important." So if you say, "Hey, you left something out," you're right. I'd be here all day if I didn't. And so what I want you to do, I'd like you to do, I invite you to do, is to say, "Hey, what about this one? This is one I think is important." And just tell us all about it. Okay. All right. Well, until next time, then. This is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. And as always, this is an invitation to remember, and don't forget those comments. Hope to see you next week.